the real application of an open-ended question is get people to think. It's not to get an answer. Now, it's an okay mechanism to get an answer. Like, what's the biggest challenge you face? If the person has enough gas in their mental tank, they can answer that question. You got to catch them in the morning while they're on their first cup of coffee. There's a whole bunch of neuroscience reasons why you cannot get a good answer to that question probably after 11 o'clock in the morning, for sure after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Circadian rhythm, decision fatigue, a whole bunch of things. On the other hand, you can ask that question at any time if you want them to stop and think. Daniel Kahneman would call that slow thinking, in-depth critical thinking. The classic, that question stopped me in my tracks. That's a physical manifestation of the power of a great open-ended question. Stop them dead in their tracks. And if you choose those, you want it to start with either the word what or the word how, and stay away from any other open-ended question.
One of the open-ended questions that I love that you say is, how am I supposed to do that?
Yeah.
And you use that as an FBI hostage negotiator, and you use that in the Black Swan Group training. And what is the power behind that is it puts them back in their seat, right? Where they have to help you make that decision.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on how it's one of the critical things in the Black Swan method. And as I said before, a stop you in your tracks question. Stop them dead in their tracks. And how am I supposed to do that? Hits on a lot of levels. We refer to it on our team as forced empathy. Stop them in their tracks, force them to take a look at you. Again, the issue is not the answer. Now, 9 times out of 10, their answer is going to be something that you love. And the good news, bad news about this technique, like, it's only one thing that we teach in our company, but it is so powerful. And in and of itself, it can make such a massive difference in people's lives that sometimes that's the only thing that they learn. Because they're like, bang, you're in a different world as soon as you learn that. You got the other side cutting their price in half. You got the other side, just massively changing their position based on the strength of that one single Black Swan method. And then the one time out of 10, it's so effective that you're used to hitting not just home runs, but grand slam home runs. The one time, you miss, people just like, holy cow, I don't know what to do. I got that from somebody the other day. She said, how am I supposed to do that? And it didn't work. Now, that tells me so much. Number one, she was so flummoxed by it not working. She was used to it working ridiculously, like a magic spell. Like she'd been to Hogwarts and been taught the Patronus charm, And so I said, well, no, it's not that it didn't work. It's that you're so used to getting a different result, you misinterpreted the data that you got back. Out of one time in 10, by the way, 9 out of 10 successes is higher than anything else that anybody else is using. But the one time in 10, the person's going to come back with, that's your problem, or if you want the deal, you'll do it, which is to immediately put it right back on you. And she said, well, that was a failure. Well, no, it's not a failure. What it just told you is you're dealing with someone who's not collaborative. Now that made you smarter, going from wondering if they weren't collaborative to knowing, at least on this point. It also tells you, as a negotiator, your job, so that you don't leave money on the table, is to find the limits. And with that application of the Black Swan method, you just found the limit without driving the other side from the table. Because under all other circumstances, when you push somebody to the limit, the gauge is when they start to melt down. When a long time ago, I read Herb Cohen's book, You Can Negotiate Anything. You know, if you're into reading the literature of negotiation, everybody that I know read this book. It's probably their first negotiation book. Herb told people, push them till they're genuinely angry, because that's when you know they're at their limit. There's always a toxic residue from genuine anger. And I remember doing that. I remember thinking like, well, cool, you know, I'm going to continue to pound this guy until he's angry, until they pound the table and they go, because that would hurt me. That would cost me. I would lose money. And, you know, Herb's instruction was like, awesome. You just found the limit. You did your job. Where we are here is find a limit without inducing that sort of anger, which is radioactive, toxic waste, which is not what you need for long-term successful relationships. So that, you know, that's the other thing, the misinterpretation of the data. How do you not leave money on the table? You push the other side until they say, because if you want the deal, you're going to do it. And you go like, awesome, I just did my job.